Welcome to Screenshots. Juan is back from Mexico.
Yes.
Where he recorded under the influence on the beach.
Yes.
Good vacation?
Great vacation. Yeah, a lot of fun on the beach.
Good to have you back.
Although I missed the Philly Open, I was actually thinking about playing while I was at the beach and having margaritas and having a good time, but I had a good time there, so I don't regret it.
I read your text on the air about wishing you were in the cold weather. Yeah. You needed a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So what do we have for our viewers today?
Well, I mean, Mark Parsons is coming, so he's going to do a recap on the Philly Open for both women and men. I don't know how many matches he got to watch in the women's row, but he's going to.
He was on court a little bit.
Yeah. And then we have, for the first time, the point of the week. We're going to show a point that was played between Marco Grangeiro, George Wilkinson against Luba on the Rose in the quarterfinals. That was pretty amazing. It was a 3.5 minute, 4 minute point. Yep. Really cool. And then I think we have an interview today.
Guest interview.
A guest interview. I think we have this paddle player named Alex Chincilla. He's interviewing Ryan Bruhlein.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I heard that they have Alex Chincilla has a lot of interesting questions.
And the legendary Ryan Bruhlein.
And the legendary Ryan Bruhlein. Yes.
Okay.
The brew.
Okay, we'll be right back with Screenshots. Okay, so I'm joined by Mark Parsons to do the wrap-up of the 2015 Philly Open. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Mark, thanks for having me.
My partner Juan Araya was on the beach in Mexico getting drunk, so obviously he doesn't have a lot of knowledge of the tournament, so we thought it'd be helpful to bring you in.
He may still be there.
So let's talk first about the women's match. I had the pleasure of broadcasting the Kruzinica Nicolescu-Andrikova match, which is an interesting match. Roxy Nika and Martina Andrikova normally are partners and play together, and Gabby Nicolescu, who's a tremendous young talent, played last week with Liz Cruz. That was a great match, 7-5 in the third, an upset for Nicolescu and Andrikova. So the Kruzinica Nicolescu-Andrikova match was a terrific match. Dardis and Shea beat Delaney and Prop pretty handily, and I guess the rest of the women's quarters all went pretty close. Coaches pretty fast. Coach Williamson lost to Delmonico Gebbia, and Lyon and Prendergast lost to Brzova Stoklasova. So I know you were on the court for a lot of the day. Did you get to see some of the Dardis, Shea, Delmonico Gebbia semifinal?
They played on the court that I was going on, so I did get to see a little bit of that. Close second set, if I remember correctly.
I think it was 10-8 in the breaker.
Exactly, because and then it looked kind of just, you know, back and forth. I don't think there was any maybe a little bit of consistency in the end by Dardis and Shea to pull out that second set. I didn't see much of the first.
I really thought Delmonico and Gebbia were going to win that match. I mean, Lauren Gebbia obviously is a tremendous talent, really playing new age paddle, hits the ball a lot. And I didn't think Dardis and Shea were going to be able to kind of stand up to her power. Yeah,
I mean, it was cold. I mean, it was cold all weekend. And, you know.
Did weather impact that match, or was it still snowing a little bit then?
I don't think the snow had begun. I think in the cold weather, even if you're a hard hitter, you've got to hit even harder. You know, it's slowing everything down a tiny bit, I think. So I think that may have had something to do with the outcome.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So the other semi was Vicky and Anna versus Gabby and Martina, which was good three-setter. I didn't see any of that because I was streaming one of the men's matches at the time, but I heard that was a real tight competitive match. Finals is the matchup we had all year last year. Stoklasova and Brzova versus Dardis and Shea. Dardis and Shea beat them last year at Long Island, lost to them 3 or 4 other times. It's brutally cold on Sunday morning. We have the weather delay. Match was completely non-competitive.
Yeah, I actually got to see it because we finished our semi, and then they played in between the semis and the finals. It was definitely one-sided. You know, I think that's where I think you see Vicky and Anna being able to use the cold to their advantage a little bit more maybe than Dardis and Shea.
Were you surprised that Dardis and Shea didn't switch it up? They were really getting hurt with the blitzing in the first set. They didn't play I formation. They didn't poach. They never changed anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. You know, I think it's hard when you come out against a team. Look, I know that something that I've struggled with in the past. You come out with something in your mind about how you want to play a match, and you truly believe in it. And even when it doesn't go your way, you start to think, oh, well, you know, maybe it's going to change. Do I think they should have changed something? Absolutely. But at the same time, I think oftentimes teams find it hard to maybe go out of their normal game plan to try and find another way.
Well, that was Vicky and Anna's last match of the season. Vicky's not playing nationals, so they go out with a win. That was clearly the best match they played all year. And maybe Dardis and Shea can make up for it with a good performance in nationals, where they've historically struggled.
Definitely sets up an interesting nationals. You're going to have a lot of teams that...
It is wide open.
Yeah, it's going to be they're very interesting for sure.
Okay, we're going to be right back with the wrap-up of the Philly Open men. Okay, so I'm back with Mark Parsons, and we're going to talk about the men's wrap-up for the Philly Open. We're going to start in the quarters. So first quarter we're going to talk about is the Broderick-Palmer-McKnight-Rose match. Broderick had played against McKnight-Rose a couple times with Gambino. First time we played against him with Jared Palmer. This was McKnight-Rose's first tournament in a while. I think Pete had arthroscopic surgery on his knee. Yep. So hadn't been playing a lot. Good performance to make it through to the quarters. They had a good win over Mick Ordoya and Mark Innes in the 16s. Mm-hmm. I should mention that Juan had that match wrong, which is not really surprising, I guess.
Too many drinks on the beach.
Too many drinks on the beach, probably. So Drew and Jared just took them apart. I think it was 2-2.
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit of that match. I was in the tent. It had some heat on, and I was watching a little bit of it. It goes back to what we talked about with the ladies. I don't think McKnight-Rose had a plan B.
Did McKnight-Rose ever have a plan B? I mean, they're a tremendously athletic team. They volley exceptionally well. They don't hurt you much from the net.
True, I think they're one of the smartest teams out there.
They are a smart team. They play really smart paddle, but I don't know they have that many options, that many ways to beat you.
Agreed.
I mean, to me, one of the things that really separates the top, I would say, 3 teams from everybody else at this point is they have multiple ways to win. But we'll get into that as we get further along. So let's talk a little bit about your match versus Alex Chincilla and Ryan Bruhlein. That's the 3rd time this year you played those guys. Yeah.
We played them in Boston and also at Charities.
Anything different here? Or?
We played well. I mean, Johan and I were kind of on top of our game for that match. I personally enjoy playing against Alex. We're friends, and I always like to play well against my friends. And it was cold, and it was not much different than the previous times we've played.
Because based on the results, I can't imagine Alex enjoys playing against you.
That I don't know, but it was a fun match. I mean, I'm sure one-sided on our side of the court, but we definitely played well that match.
Okay, so the next match, which was going on before you started and pretty much after you finished, was clearly the best match of the quarterfinals, and that was John Lubau and Steve DeRose versus Marco Grangero and George Wilkinson. So John and Steve have struggled all year, really haven't played particularly well. I think they dropped from, maybe there were 2 or 3 in the country, or 2 in the country last year at Nationals, and I think after losing it early at Short Hills, they dropped to, I think, 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. So they come out, they try and make a statement that they're relevant. And John especially got off to a slow start. They lose the first set 6-3, but then John really starts to play well. Second set they win, and then the third set was just tremendous. I know you went on court late in the third set, but pick it up and give me some of your observations from when you were watching.
I saw parts of the third, because actually at one point I thought we were going to be playing there, so I was definitely kind of watching that match. The volleys got out of control. I mean, I remember seeing John hit two reflex volleys off of balls that were...
the last one through George's legs.
Exactly. I mean, it was... The volleys got insane. John picked up his game. Everyone on the court was playing quite well. I didn't get a chance to see, I guess it was 5-4 or 5-all on.
So George is serving 4-5 in the third, and Steve DeRose plays a bad game. Made a couple of really shaky errors. They hold and they break Lubau again, which was, I think, the 12th time they broke Lubau in that match out of the 6 times he served. And then Marco goes to serve it out, and it was just a tremendous game. I think they had 4 match points.
Wow.
And maybe 4 break points. So the game itself must have lasted 10, 12 minutes. Just really high caliber play. They end up breaking. They get into the breaker, and at 2-3 they play one of the best points I've ever seen, which is going to be our Philly Open point of the week. We're going to be showing later. George and Marco win it, and they go on to win the tiebreaker, I think 7 points to 4. Just a tremendous match. Last quarterfinal is Sebastian Bredberg and Martin Bostrom versus Anton Mavrin and Patricio Mistrano. Rematch of the semifinals at Longmeadow.
I watched that entire match.
So this was the match of the day where the conditions really got bad. It was the last match, starting to snow, paddles icing up.
Yep.
What were your impressions of the match?
Martin and Sebastian came out very hot. I think Patricio and Anton maybe have struggled a little bit with the snow.
Anton, for the first 5 games, Anton didn't hit 3 balls in the court.
Agreed. And I think Patricio was struggling a little bit with the snow, and there was a little skid ball going on. I think their court wasn't the greatest heaters in the world.
No.
But it progressively turned into a very entertaining and fun match. Anton and Patricio actually came back in the first.
Forced the breaker.
Made it very competitive. I think that breaker was maybe the main decider of the match. I think. I think conditions continued to deteriorate throughout the match, and I think it became such a heavy thing to come back from that 1-0 deficit.
It was interesting. In the breaker, Martin Bostrom, who's not known as the smartest player, one thinks he's very cocky, but that's another issue, suggested to Sebi they switch sides in the backcourt because Martin was able to generate more offense from the backhand, and Sebi was having more success kind of digging up. Patricio had a real good slash overhead and the skid ball that was effective. And when they switched, it really made a big difference. And Martin hit a couple of big shots at 5-4 in the breaker. They win the set. Second set unfolds very similar to the first set. Martin and Sebi get up early. Anton and Patricio break back. They go to a breaker. It was just a tough night to play paddle. I mean, how would you have handled conditions like that with the icing on the paddle, the ball sliding?
And you said it. Look, different players react differently. There are players that it doesn't affect, and they continue to hit the same ball. And there's guys that just feel like it's the detriment to their game. You've got to let more balls go to screens. You've got to be picking your drives a little bit, I guess, be pickier. It's a hard thing when you include the snow and the rain and the skid ball.
Okay, so we get up Sunday morning and it's 2 degrees.
On a good spot with sun.
Wind chill 15 below. So there's icing on the courts. So we have about an hour, 15-minute delay. And your somebody goes out first against Martin and Sebastian. Tell me a little bit about that match, what your game plan was.
To be honest, I don't think we had a game plan specifically for them. Johan and I have a game plan just for playing matches in general. And we said from the beginning, let's play our game. If we needed to adjust, we would. We never needed to. It was kind of a straightforward match for us. Yeah,
it was 3-1. Other than 2 bad games you served in the first set, really wasn't particularly competitive.
Yeah, the wind actually.
Wind was brutal.
I'll be the first one to tell you I didn't serve well. I'll be also the second one to blame it on the wind a little bit. I generally don't have those issues, but it could be that I was thinking about it also.
So Drew and Jared play Marco and George. Rematch from Short Hills the week before. Exact same result. I think at Short Hills it was 3-1. Here it was 2-2. Which leads us to the dream final, which everybody was looking forward to seeing. So Jared had clearly stepped up the level of his game at Short Hills, especially in the finals. They were down 5-2 in the third. When you guys went into that match against them, what were you expecting? Because in Boston, you'd handled them pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, we figured there'd be changes. I played against Jared earlier in the week, and he was definitely taking more risks, meaning hitting the ball a little harder, going after some of his shots. So it's definitely something I expected to see, in playing against him in the finals. We went out, same game plan, play our game. We kind of know, what we wanted to do. We weren't necessarily effective in doing it exactly in the first set. We made a few too many errors.
I'm not sure I've ever seen Johan quite as amped up as he was in that match.
Definitely amped up. I mean, I think both of us were. I think part of that also was how cold it was. There was a necessity to get amped up and to be continually moving and keeping going and keeping everything warm so you could feel the paddle and so on and so forth.
I mean, much so Johan 10 times do like this to himself.
And we talked about it briefly in between points. Oddly enough, after losing the first set, we decided to play more aggressive, which...
So you lose the first set in a breaker. Johan served short at 5-4, and Jared played 4-5 just tremendous games. Clearly the best player in the court. Closes out the set with a big forehand. You guys lose the first set in the tiebreaker. So then you talk a little bit between sets. What was that conversation like?
First thing Johan said to me is like, we need to be more aggressive, and I agreed. I mentioned maybe going into a little bit more of a permanent I formation, which we'd had some success with in the first set.
So talk about the permanent I formation.
It's just where we put Johan on top of the net. I slide back a little bit, take almost all the overheads, which is complete opposite to how we normally play, and roll everything into the deuce corner. And Johan has free reign to do whatever he can do at the
So what was the thought process behind doing that?
Basically taking away the drive. The drive was, Jared's drive was what was hurting us to begin with. So our theory is that in putting someone on top of the net and taking away that drive, or at least making him hit to extreme down the lines or extreme angles, you're making him go after a lower percentage shot than going through the middle.
I mean, as good as Johan's overhead is, it's still a down-up overhead.
Absolutely.
Whereas your overhead is much more of a horizontal overhead, where it's traveling at a similar height the whole time. So you start that way the second set, a couple of competitive games early in the set, and then you guys just seem to get rolling. Yeah,
we got some momentum. I think after 2-love, 3-love, we started to realize that our new strategy was going to work a little bit, and then we just kind of pressed forward from there.
So the strategy works great, and then to me, the key game of the match is first game of the third set. So you've won 6 games in a row, win the second set at love. Johan started serving the third, faulted a couple times. Wind had gotten bad at that point, especially struggling to the deuce court, partially because Jared was returning so well.
And I think we had also just switched.
Yeah, switched sides that you were serving on.
Sides in regards to who's serving.
And you end up holding off 3 or 4 break points, and then quickly jump out to a 4-love lead. Did they try and make any adjustments to the new strategy? I saw Jared was kind of taking the nick away from you a little bit.
Jared was taking the nick away. He was definitely blocking more. He was trying to come more, over the down the line person, which, look, it forces me to go to the middle a little bit, and pick and choose my times. And then I've got to be, as soon as I get the one that goes out wide, I can go back. But it's just a waiting game. It's paddle. It's patience.
It's interesting to see you guys play as many long points as you did on Sunday, because that's not a style. I think I heard you say once that you haven't played a point that lasted more than 30 seconds.
It's hard to play a point longer than 30 seconds and playing with Johan. But yeah, no, look, our thought pattern was after the first is that it wasn't necessarily, the match wasn't necessarily going to go to our favor if we continued to play the way we were playing. And Johan and I have been very big about in the last year or year and a half about changing our game and not playing the same style if it's not working.
Were you surprised that Jared didn't adjust and that he kept hitting the 3/4 forehand, which Johan must have hit, 15 or 20 drop shot winners on?
I think it's so ingrained in us to hit drives to think about winning points. And I think, look, I put me in the situation, I'm sure I'd do the same thing. I think anyone would. I think it becomes difficult to, when you get the right ball, to be thinking about not driving the ball. And the problem is when you have someone on top of the net, it may not be the correct shot.
But Jared's forehand, when he hits it, is a heck of a shot. He got in trouble when he was hitting the 3/4 or maybe even a half speed ball. And he got in trouble doing that a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that has to do with a variety of reasons. One being the ball that's coming at him, and the ability to drive a hard ball off of a hard ball is a little difficult. And then once you let it go to a screen, I think you're taking the risk of the nick, and you're also then having to redirect a ball, back towards someone who's already standing at the net. It's not an easy play.
So talk a little bit more about that in terms of when you're hitting that hard driving overhead. You're looking to elicit that soft drive from Jared? You're looking for the nick? I mean,
I'm looking for the nick. What happens after that is only a bonus, I guess. I'm looking to hit the nick. I'm looking to try and not end the point, but at least force them to make an error. If it turns out that it produces a half-pace, 3/4 pace drive that Johan's able to pick off, that's awesome.
What, if any, adjustments did you see from them in the second and third sets?
Yeah, I mean, a few extra lobs here and there. I think there's things that they will do. Nothing that I'm going to share with you or the viewing audience currently. But I think there's things that they'll do, and we're kind of aware of what might happen, and we'll see.
You know, I'm on record as having said that I think that Drew needs to redline his game a little bit more, to be more aggressive against you guys, to try and win some points. But that's a really fine line, because that's not the game that he plays. And I'm happy to see that Jared has kind of amped it up a little bit and playing a little more aggressively, taking some more risks. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think there's a very good likelihood you guys are going to be playing it Sunday afternoon in Chicago in the finals of Nationals.
That's a long ways away.
It's a long ways away. Well, I know that Ben McKnight bet Patricio Mistrano even money that would be the final of Nationals.
I'm glad he has the confidence. Look, as you know, and as most people who will be watching this know and playing at Nationals, Nationals is a whole different animal. And what happens at Nationals, there's no rhyme or reason as to who makes the finals, who makes the semis, or quarters and so on. It's a very, very different tournament than every other tournament of the year.
Well, one of the things that really impressed me on Sunday was your willingness to go to Plan B or Plan C or Plan D. And too often, as I saw in the ladies' final, teams have a plan and they never deviate from it. And if you're losing, I'm just always shocked at people's refusal to change a losing strategy.
Yeah, it's hard though. I mean, look, I said it before. I went through it. I've been there. I know how hard it is to change the game plan. It's like the sinking ship. You're just kind of like, oh well, this is the way it's going to be. I mean, we did have a Plan C for that match. We never had to get there, but we did have a Plan C. I don't think we had a Plan D. But it would have been interesting had we lost the first couple games of the second. Would we have immediately gone to Plan C? And who knows?
Okay. Well, thanks for your thoughts on the match, and thanks for helping us with the Philly wrap-up. We'll be right back. We're going back to Marco.
Yep.
3-2. And Gerald Wilkinson. First one to 7. Couple of great volleys from George there.
He handles the barrage. Now they're in the point. Great lob.
Yep. George hit a bad overhead there and then closed. Steve caught him cheating. That's a better overhead from John Lubau. I go. With DeRosa's overhead's terrific. That's the danger spot.
So deep and so low. Here's the chase again.
Boy, DeRosa's so talented. He's covering so much of the court, still be able to make that backhand volley. Marco reads it. Great blitz.
Nope. This is a high caliber match.
It really is.
Wow. Some amazing shot making.
Great get on the nick.
Great fight by everybody, and they're just
while maintaining the highest level of sportsmanship.
Oh yeah. When I say fight, I mean determination.
Absolutely.
And these are the moments where we play the game. I mean, talk about the joy is the battle.
Boy, that ball that John threw didn't miss his bat by much.
John's doing a fabulous job of
Fabulous.
getting a full barrage of different spins, different speeds. That's a great lob.
This is some point, Jerry.
Yeah.
For those of you who have forgotten, Marco serving 3-2 in the break.
George got it, swing and a miss.
Nobody beats John Lubau with that blitz twice in 1 point, Jerry. Great lob from George. Boy, they are working to Rose.
They really are. I mean, they're coming all the way over.
And then all the way in. Catches the nick. Great dig by George. I'd like to see George read one of those DeRose overheads. Look for it in his corner. And then John loses the ball in the lights. It's like he never saw that ball. Okay.
Hi. My name is Alex Chincilla, and I'm here with the great Ryan Bruhlein, who will be referred to as the Brew from here on out. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I recently looked up in the dictionary the definition of the word stalker. It is a person who stealthily hunts or pursues an animal or another person.
What does that have to do with paddle?
Well, I'll never forget the first time I saw you. I wasn't able to keep my eyes off of you. You were shaving in your bathroom, and I was looking through the window. And I'm just curious if you have any comments on that.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I have no comment.
All right, next question. People consider you to be like a ghost. People who know you, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of those people. And then there's people that don't know you and consider you to be, unapproachable. What would you say to those people?
I wouldn't say anything.
Sorry, I had a text. Who would you say are the currently the best players in paddle?
I think that Johan Duran is an amazing player. That guy, Mark Parsons, has a terrific backhand. And I always like the way you play. I think that you're one of the best players out there.
So, sorry, I had an email come in. What did you just say?
I just think that I always like the way you play, and I think that you're one of the best players out there.
All right. So what do you think are the best parts of my game?
I think your backhand is amazing. I like the way you close the net and you swing at those volleys. You have great trick shots. And I think your service is a weapon.
Yeah, maybe for the other team, but maybe not for my team. But it's a whole nother story. So you're considered to be one of the best spin players ever to play the game. I mean, the likes of Juan Araya can't even touch you. How did this spin come, and how have you prevented, let's say, other South Americans from not being able to, get such spin?
When I grew up playing the sport, I always liked to serve on volley. And I started trying new things and trying to end the points quickly. and that's how I came up with all these spins.
I end points quickly too, by the use of my serve. So I've got a question from one of our viewers. We currently have 3. A question from Mark Parsons. What would be one of your most memorable matches?
Well, I think that one of the most memorable matches is the one that you and I play against Johan Durant and Mark Parsons in the round of 16 at the Boston Open. The conditions weren't great, but it was memorable, not in a good way. But then I think I played other memorable matches. There are too many out there that just, I don't have enough time to bring them all up now.
One more question from one of our viewers. We're down to 2. Mark Fischel, who I think has watched everything in paddle since the day it came out, would like to know what size shoe you are.
I'm a size 12.
My last question, and probably my most important question, and I'm very interested to see how you will answer it. I hear you like barbecue. What's your favorite style of barbecue and the favorite product to barbecue?
I would say the Argentinian style and the chimichurri sauce.
And you have an Argentinian background? Or
no,
is
but I know somebody that is from Argentina.
Well, my legs are getting tired from sitting this way. So we're going to call it an interview. And I would like to thank Ryan Bruhlein, the Brew, for being here. And this is Alex Chincilla signing off until the next Legends of Paddle interview.